Welcome once again to the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are here today, and we're joined by our guest, Yulia Corca, as you knew her in the mission, now Yulia Rushworth. Yulia, it's great to have you.
Thank you for having me over.
Absolutely. What part of the world are you calling from today?
We are in Leeds, and that's in England.
Nice.
We live in a place called Yeaden, actually. You don't spell it like Eden. And it's about half an hour away from the city center. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very good. Well, we appreciate you making time to come on with us. Just a reminder of the format. We'll talk about your anticipation of going on a mission or your decision to choose to go on a mission and your reaction going to Scotland. And then we'll talk about your life since you've been home from Scotland. And then we'll go back and reminisce through companions and areas you served and go from there. So I'll turn the time to you.
Okay. I may need some promptings from you every now and again to just kind of, remind me where I need to be, really.
That's what we're here for, I can assure you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me just see. I am Romanian. I'm British as well now because I've been here for a really long time. But fundamentally, I'm Romanian. I was born in a place called Brașov in Transylvania. I am 20 minutes away from Dracula's castle, by the way, but it's nothing where you see in movies, not at all.
Wow.
I am a convert to the church, and I met the sisters whilst I was just going from a uni course to my flat, to the flat where I was living at the time. And I went on a mission when I was about 18 months into the church. So very, very early after getting baptized. And it was a very steep learning curve for me because I just didn't know a lot at all. I didn't want initially to go on a mission. It was not on the plan for me. I wanted to support my brother, who joined the church about 5 or 6 months after I did. We are the only members in our family to have joined the church around that time, and the only ones to this date. There was a series of, I don't know, really strange events that happened. I was going out with the sisters teaching. I thought it was fun what they were doing. I was involved quite a lot in the activities that they were doing at the chapel. They were offering English lessons. I wasn't teaching English, but I was teaching French because that's what I studied at university. So it was quite nice. I could see a little bit of. I was like, oh, this is quite fun. Let's do it together. So I was going on joint teaches with the missionaries, and it seemed nice, but I was like, this is not for me. I'm too old. I joined the church when I was 22, and so I was like, I'm too old to go on a mission. The missionaries were a lot younger than me, and it just so happened that when I kind of made that decision, it was one of those moments where you feel like. I don't know. I'm not very airy-fairy with things that have to do with faith. I'm quite cynical usually. So for me, it's a miracle that I have a faith in the first place. But it just so happened that the sister of the wife of the mission president came through, and somehow we just kind of formed a relationship, and there was definitely a bond there, I don't know. And from one conversation to another, it just so happened that, the talk of a mission came about, and I don't remember the specific moment when that happened, and that it just dawned on me, I just have to do it, and then from then on, I think it took me 6 months to get everything ready. And bear in mind that during that time, I was still in Romania, so everything takes a lot longer to get sorted. And in 6 months, I was out on the mission field after making the decision to go. So I remember specifically when I sent my papers in, I almost said a prayer that they wouldn't call me to go to the UK. I was terrified of the weather. I was terrified that that was going to be depressing, that honestly. And when I saw Scotland, I was like, this is a complete joke. This is just unbelievable, unbelievable. And then when oh man, Edinburgh, and I looked on the map just to kind of convince myself that this is the nightmare that I'm actually going to live. I saw how far up north it was, and how like, this is not this is not happening to me. I wanted to go to France. I had been to France. I could speak French because that's what I studied at university. I was fluent, so I was like, that's where they're gonna call me. It just makes sense to me that this is what's going to happen. And no, it wasn't that. Actually, for about 6 months into the mission field, I thought that the prophet got it wrong because I'm like, this is not enjoyable. This
Oh,
is
man.
it just sucks, And so it wasn't great, but then I don't know, I just kind of got on with things, prepared as best as I could. Then I went onto the Preston MTC here, just very close. It's so surreal for me because I live
I'm
so
sure.
close to the MTC now. I mean, how far away are we from the temple? About an hour and a half.
It's less than about an hour.
It's about an hour, yeah.
Yeah, you're not far away at all.
No, not at all. And I'm actually in my ward. There are two of my former MTC teachers, and then the
Wow.
Stake Relief Society president is one of the sisters that was training to become a missionary and then to go on to serve in Manchester. So it's just very.
Oh my goodness.
The teachers are. Some of them might know.
Oh, you might know them. Let me see. The MTC teachers. One of them is Joe McMorn, and the other one is Greg Pyle.
I think that was after our time. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know how
And,
how frequently the missionary teachers in the MTC
change.
switch, but
yeah.
I know. I mean, let's be honest. In my experience, I don't think I remembered much of the names of the teachers because I was so jet lagged and trying to figure out what language I was speaking, and there were so many things going on that was a little bit of a blur. I remember the President Bourdain and his wife and a couple of the other people, but beyond that, it was really a whirlwind. But anyway, nonetheless, it's one of those things where there's some of us that have those experiences like you, Yulia, where you get to see those people on a more frequent basis, and it's like a little bit surreal that at one point in time they helped you to set a foundation for your mission experience, which I'm sure that's got to be crazy a little bit.
I think so, because I never expected to actually live in England. I was fully expecting to go back to Romania, and that was going to be my life, but we're going to go back to that later
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
So I went to the MTC. Go on.
I was going to say, remind us time frame when you went to the MTC.
Let me see. It was for only, I think it was under 3 weeks, and it was in November 2008.
Okay.
I remember just feeling so overwhelmed, like all throughout my mission. This is the theme, of my mission, is just feeling super overwhelmed with everything, because the culture that I was used to from back home, it was very different to what I could see as a missionary myself in Britain and then in Scotland. It felt like here it was a lot more strict. It was a lot more. There was more of an emphasis on exact obedience. Whereas I had witnessed so many examples of disobedience. When I was in Romania, not to say that the missionaries were absolute rubbish, but it was just very, very different. So, I think I liked it at the MTC. Again, it was overwhelming, but I remember everybody just complaining about the food, and for me, it was wonderful. I mean, I came from a country where we didn't have that many options, in terms of food.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it was just like, it was great for me. I have learned a lot at the MTC, but it was definitely just the beginning of what I was going to learn as a missionary onto the mission field. So that's about it. If you want to,
Okay.
I don't know what else I could say.
Well, so you'd mentioned to me in a previous email that you went home in December of 2009, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So take us to life since December of 2009. What have you been up to since you've been home?
Well, how should I put it? Because I don't want to be Life has been very interesting, as you mentioned at the beginning. There's been a long enough time from us ending our missions to up to now to kind of say we've lived some life.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
I was married once, I got divorced, and then I married again, and I'm still married. So life hasn't really panned out the way that I was hoping it to be. I have learned a lot in the process.
You're hoping you were single by now.
No, I wasn't hoping to be single. This is my husband walking in the background, cracking jokes. Oh no, pwah, it's absolute rubbish being single. Um, um, no, I wasn't hoping that. I think so. I came back. I married an Englishman, and then I went back to Romania, and then I lived with my parents for a little while, and then I came back to England.
After you divorced the first Englishman.
After I divorced the first Englishman, and then I did all sorts of things. I worked. I lived with different members in different members of the church around different wards around here. I've had a bit of a wandering life. Like a little bit like a nomad.
Mhm.
And up until I met Yeaden. Yeaden is my husband, and we met in still. Stop it. We met when I was working as an au pair in London, and
Wow.
we dated for, how long did we date for before he proposed to me?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. And
Nice.
Waiting period.
that's right. Hayden and I, because we'd both been married before, we were like, you know what? We're
Oh,
not
wow.
going to mess about. We're either going to do this or we're not going to do it. So we were just very determined that, we were going to. Wait, do you want to show it?
Yeah, you can look.
We just printed this. Can you see it?
There you go. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Wow.
This is behind the Hyde Chapel, Hyde Park
Oh.
Chapel,
Very nice.
because we were trying to be good, but also date and have privacy, but not be too private, So it was a really lovely time for us because London is full of stuff that you can do, But being around the chapel helped us to kind of keep our focus on the things that we wanted, and also just kind of get to know each other. So that was
True.
quite nice.
That's cool.
We have worked together in his business. When I met him, he was doing family photography, and most of the work came from London because that's where the money is. And then, so I learned a lot of things in the meantime, how to edit, how to do all sorts of things. Then we moved to Wales. And we lived there for about 5 or 6 years, and we did a lot of work. My husband transitioned into filmmaking, and so we worked a little bit for the Welsh Assembly, which is like the equivalent of Westminster in Wales. So we did a lot of political messaging, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But Hayden was getting fed up with it. So, we moved when his work there ended. We moved in 2021. We moved up here because Hayden grew up here. So
Okay,
that's
cool.
what we've been doing,
That's great.
and accumulated of 3 kids in the meantime.
3 kids. That's great.
3
Very
kids,
fun.
yeah.
What ages are your kids?
Lizzie is 7.5. Daisy, she is 6, and William is almost 11 months old. And I'm a stepmother as well because, like I said, Hayden was married before, and he's got 2 boys from a previous marriage. And there again, there are lots of other lessons that you can learn there. And they are 20 and 22 now, but they still live in Wales at the minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What a fun blended family it sounds like you guys have going on. That's awesome. I'm
Well.
sure they keep you busy.
Yes.
Well, good. Well, we appreciate you letting us know what you've been up to since the mission. If you'd like, you can start back at the MTC and your experience there, and we'll go through companions and areas you served in and any memories of your time as a missionary.
Okay. So my companion at the MTC was Sister Mather. You probably don't know her. I think she was from Utah. I don't remember much. I mean, to be quite honest, I haven't kept in touch with a lot of the missionaries that I served with. I think that once you get back home and then you become a mother, you just lose a lot of who you were before, and that entails losing a lot of the connections that you had before because you just get busy. It was okay. I didn't. Again, for me, I think I was so, my goodness, what the heck is this? Because it felt really intense to me.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to wait for me going onto the mission field in Scotland, but it was still intense. I don't know, the MTC. I think I realized how much I still have to learn in terms of doctrine, because you need to bear in mind I was still a recent convert, basically. I was 18 months into my church membership, and so I had a lot to learn. That felt like a mammoth of a task. I think I was quite excited to go into the mission field to just kind of crack on and feel like I'm actually being a missionary. I remember once when they sent us to Blackburn, I think. I don't know if you used to do door knocking in Blackburn. It's quite close to Preston. They would put us on a bus and then they would just let us go on specific streets when we were at the MTC. And I did not enjoy it at all. It was just because we were learning all these things, and we were doing all these role plays within the classrooms of the MTC. And then when it came to speaking to real people, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just, I didn't know how to connect with people. I didn't know that, you just can't go into and knock on somebody's door and they just kind of blurt things out, because that's what you were taught, to do.
Right.
I think that is great that they call young missionaries to go on missions, because you need to have the courage that comes with a young head. But definitely, I don't think that we're prepared to know how to talk to people, like from heart to heart, to kind of get to know people. To, I don't know, just.
Do you think that was
steep
a
learning
cultural difference for you, Yulia, too? Like, I've never been to Romania. Do you feel like that was something that was a little bit different, where people don't really have a lot of, hey, how you doing, talk to random strangers? Is it because that's what my understanding is of like Eastern Europe, but you could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean, if you came to a Romanian store and you were to say what you're about, I think they would swear at you and they would tell you where to go, and then they would shut the door in your face. You see, so at least the Brits, they were a bit more polite, so I appreciated that. But I don't know.
You must have knocked different doors than I did, because the Scots treated me and probably Jack fairly the same. I mean,
oh no,
they may have been more polite to you.
That was Preston, that was
Oh, yeah.
MTC period. That's what we're talking about here,
Okay,
because in Scotland it was I did not have, just polite experiences, so no.
Okay.
I think we all get the same treatment, whether you're a sister or an elder, you get the same treatment.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. Yeah, that's and I remember just feeling, I was very homesick, but not so much for my parents, because before I left on my mission, my parents are not members, and before I left on my mission, I went to my dad to tell him that this is what I'm doing, because I was absolutely terrified of him. Okay, I didn't grow up in a very loving family, and so I still carried a lot of fear, with regards to my dad. And so I went to him with some elders, because I was like, they're gonna have my back. Is something gonna happen? And I told him, and he got that I was going to work as an interpreter for some church in Scotland. And my mom was like, you know what? This is what he got. Just leave it. You go where you have to go, and that's it. So I was like, well, we'll just leave it at that.
Wow.
Eventually, he understood what was happening. My mom, she would write to me every now and again, but they were not great letters or emails or anything like that, because obviously they couldn't understand. My mom knew that I was a member, but she was like, you just need to just keep your dad out of it, so
Yeah, it's tough.
yeah, so it was very difficult for me at the MTC because I didn't have any of that support. I mean, missionaries, sometimes some former missionaries from Romania would write to me, but it's not the same, I don't think, as when you have the support of your family. So
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. That would be really difficult.
yeah, so finished MTC, and then we went onto the mission field. Then there were two missionaries going from the MTC that transfer. It was me and Elder Farnes, and it was awkward as heck traveling from Preston to, I think it was Waverley. Is that the Waverley
Yeah.
Street? Is
Yeah.
that right?
Uh-huh.
And as you don't know, all of a sudden you're told that you can't do this, you can't do that. What do I do? How do I talk to this person? And we didn't really talk, to be honest. I don't remember how long it took for us to travel from Preston to the train station in Edinburgh, but we just really didn't talk. So, all right. And then everything is kind of a blur from, I don't even remember President Frederick coming to pick me up. I don't remember who it was there. Everything is such a blur. I don't know if it was because I was so nervous or because that happened such a long time ago, but I don't even remember what happened at the mission home. I don't. I just, everything just kind of blurs for me. I just remember Sister Cook being presented to me as my trainer, and then us going to Bathgate. That was our first area. And I remember being told that we need to wear our proselyting clothes on our preparation day, and that we were committed to invite 10 people to be baptized on the street. Okay, that was one of the commitments that our district was extending, and we needed to do that every day, and that included preparation day. And I was like, this is so intense. I do not like this.
Day. Oh
Every
my God.
day. I do not feel comfortable with this, but we had to do it. Sister Cook was she was very, very hardworking, and so and she was very obedient. All of my companions were. Let me just put it out there. All of my companions were absolutely amazing missionaries. I never saw anything to kind of lead me to believe that they were there for the wrong reasons, like to meet somebody to marry or whatever. No, not at all. Because obviously when you share a flat with somebody, you kind of get to know them a little bit. But no, they were very focused on the work. And these 10 baptisms, they even now, if I were to be asked again to do street contacting and to do that, I would not do it. I would just not do it. It is
No way.
it is so ridiculous. Like, looking back on it, I thought that it was just something wrong with me, but I understand the principle of obedience. You need to do what your leaders are asking you to do, but I just, too much for me. Talking now about a mission, I think it's the only thing that I would probably want to do again, but to do better. I think that with the head that I have now, I would probably approach different things differently, not with the same fear, not with the same apprehension that I might put a foot wrong, or that I'd be doing something wrong by taking more time over with people, or by taking the time to kind of get to know them a little bit. Because for me, I think the motive throughout my mission is I am terrified of putting a foot wrong, and I am terrified that I'm not doing something that I'm doing something wrong, or that I'm not doing something to help people to get baptized. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It just felt as though it felt so I don't know.
The word that's come to me many times in hearing stories about your era of the mission was impersonable, where it was very just statistic driven.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone having a genuine experience of coming unto Christ.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I'm listening to the missionaries. We have sisters in our ward at the moment, and I'm listening to how they're doing missionary work, and, down to how their day is structured. They have so much more flexibility. When I'm talking to them, I feel like I'm talking to humans. Yes, they still humans who have, but no, it's in a good way. Okay, not with humans who have true, they're representative of Christ, but at the same time, they're not machines. I was looking, it was actually a little bit like, I don't think I can do this anytime soon, like going through my mission journals. And, I have tons of mission journals. Okay. And I don't think I can go through them again without feeling a bit triggered. There's the word numbers in all of my journals just appearing so many times.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was just unbelievable. I remember once in my first area, our first district leader was Elder Monteith.
Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, good fun. And then the other one, the next one was Elder Anderson, who was Elder Monteith's companion when I started my mission. Anyway, when Elder Anderson became the district leader, he would just crack jokes about our numbers, and it felt much better that way. But we were still pounded about numbers. I remember the first in December, so soon after I went onto the mission field, there were 2 people who got baptized. Their names were Roma and somebody else. I don't remember his name. Anyway, they were not ready to get baptized. They didn't even show up to be confirmed, or we didn't even finish filling in their baptismal records. They were not ready. But we needed to have some numbers, you see. And so they weren't keeping commitments. I don't remember exactly all the details, but it was just, I was like, this is just so, but I learned as I progress into the mission, and then now looking back on it, that my leaders were still young men. And it's so great to have that perspective. They were young men who are learning how to become leaders. And that, and I don't have the same kind of like, oh, why are you committing me to do this? Because this is ridiculous, And I think it's great to have that perspective, because I think it's something that I had to use over and over and over again with some of my leaders, from then onwards, because even with my husband is a lot older than me, and I have had to learn that even if he's a guy and he's a lot older than me, he still doesn't have answers to all of the questions that I might ask of him. You see, so it was very insightful. In Bathgate, I spent about 6 months there, and I don't remember having. I think we've only gone past the 3rd lesson, which is, I think it's back then it was with let me see, the principles of the gospel, wasn't it? With I don't remember. And preach my gospel. It was lesson number 3. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. Faith.
I think
repentance, baptism,
that's right.
And confirmation.
Right. I think we only went past that maybe once. That was it. I mean, we had so many people. I mean, I don't know if you've served in Bathgate, but Bathgate is full of, there are some nice areas and there's some very dodgy areas like Armadale, and then Whitburn, full of people. I have never, ever been in contact with so many people who are drug addicts or recovering from drug addiction. I have had amazing experiences with people who were former addicts or addicts, because I think that as missionaries, we're somehow privileged to see beyond the person in front of you, especially if you kind of get through to whatever the person is presenting you with. Yeah, it was very eye-opening for me. So we had lots of people like this, and people like that, they don't really keep commitments. They don't really give you the right phone number. They don't really give you the right address. It probably sounds familiar to you as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
And they lie. They I couldn't understand it. And so I remember I had a week when I think I just cried a lot. I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, because it was hard. And I know that they teach you not to take things personally, but it's so hard not to. When you feel like you have something really nice to share to people. Really nice, it's a bit of an understatement. And then you have this impossible standard to meet, which is represented by numbers, which in our case sucks a lot. And like, to see a zero across. I don't have a missionary planner handy. I just brought out my journals, but our numbers were really crap. Like, they were so bad. They were so bad. And
We've all been there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. I mean, I have my stack of planners right here, and
oh, there we are.
how many? I mean, this is a P day that was planned with nothing in it. It's not like you're not alone in your feelings in that, Yulia. It's just that's just what we did, and some days you felt like crap, and the other days you felt like, man, I'm doing something good.
So I went through my journal, and it felt as if I was reading the words of somebody who had a bipolar disorder.
Oh.
But that's the only way I can describe it, because it's like this. I feel great, I'm loving it. I just feel like crap. I feel love, I'm loving it. I feel like crap. It was just,
man.
and the sisters, my companions, they were feeling a bit like that as well. I think
Oh
Sure.
man.
I think it's really taxing. I think it's so taxing on and to I think it was for the first time that I became aware of the fact that I was struggling with something. I struggled with depression for most of my life, but I never had a name for it, because in Romania there's a stigma related to related to mental health illness, and so I had to deal with that, as well, because it's just very intense, isn't it? The pressure is immense. And I think that's why now, when they're preparing new missionaries, it's not just about your physical health anymore. It's also about, much more than that. So I think it's great the way that they're doing it. Anyway, so that was Bathgate. I was there with Sister Cook and Sister Sheffield. Sister Sheffield, heart of gold. I loved her to bits. I mean, she helped me to really look at people not as potential numbers, but as humans with a heart. And that was really lovely for me to learn, and after that, I went to Dundee. Dundee was very different. Bathgate was full of long bus trips, that never ended.
Yeah.
With buses that we missed or buses that never came. And Dundee was a bustling city. There was a university there. There was a lot going on. We just had more lessons. People were progressing. How many baptisms happened there? I think about a couple. That was amazing. It was huge numbers. All of a sudden, to have so much work. I was going through some of the notes that I had here from that time, and it was. We were just teaching a lot. It was quite nice, but again, there were lots of people who somebody dropped us because they didn't want to progress. Another investigator of ours, they call them friends these days, apparently. He was killed, just things like this, that you come in. I think that as a missionary, you come into contact with a side of reality that you don't really see as a regular member. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, it feels to me like people who suffer from one addiction or another, they were there for us, the sisters, all the time, So this has been my experience more often than not. Then in Dundee was quite short, I feel. Sister Williams was really intense. She was a very, very obedient missionary, but she was really hardworking. I think it was she wasn't too interested in developing a relationship. I think because I was interested in that. I was like, well, let's get to know each other a little bit. But she was very just focused on the work. That was her thing. And I remember once we had finished planning and saying our prayers around 10:25, and that was just too much for me. It was just so intense. I mean, if you looked at one of our planners, we would have plan and then the backup plan, and sometimes we would have a backup plan for the backup plan. It was just very detailed, very structured. Then I went on to serve in Aberdeen. In Aberdeen, I served with Sister Chandler first, and she was more of a happy-go-lucky kind of a missionary. You know, she was. I'm not saying that with disrespect at all. I loved the fact that she was a bit more relaxed. She was. She seemed to be a bit more mature, a bit wiser, a bit more. You know, had a different perspective. That's the greatness in working with different missionaries, that you just learn different ways of approaching the work, of seeing people, you know. So that was that. And then I started training with Sister Ott. We started training Sister Spackman, and it was really interesting, because I felt all through my mission, you know, and I read some of my entries from that time, and I could say that those things apply to me now as a mother. You know, I felt completely inadequate. I mean, I think that for us as women, I don't know if it's the same for guys, but for us as women, we feel inadequate more often than not in whatever position we're in. And that position as a missionary translates itself quite a lot for me as a mother. But it was a very interesting experience for me. It definitely helped me to see, because Sister Spackman, bless her, she just like any new missionary, you feel so shy and inadequate, but she was doing so well, she couldn't see it. And it was really lovely for me to see that maybe this is how Heavenly Father sees all of us, you know, that we feel like we're doing such a sucky job, but in fact, we're doing much better than we think we are. And that's what I remember from that experience. Sister Ott, she was like a mother to me. She was so lovely, just so lovely. So she was she had a big heart, you know. She just loved people. She laughed a lot, and it was very refreshing for me to have that sort of experience as well, you know, because she just brought a different perspective to the work. And I struggled a lot during that time, and I wasn't doing great. And I, with the help of President Griffiths and his wife, I went and spent some time at the mission home. And then I took the decision to finish my mission early. And for me, that is something that I don't look back on with a lot of pride. And I know that it's not the same thing for a sister, you know, because you don't really have to. But still, for me, it's like I haven't finished the job. But thinking back on it, well, this is the best that I could have done with what I had back then. I don't think I could have done any more, because I think I wanted actually to finish a lot sooner. I really struggled. Let me put it that way. I don't have the fun stories. I don't have many fun stories to tell, like I've listened to some of the elders, you know, talk about. For me, it was a very sobering experience, one that helped me grow. But I don't relish even in going through my mission journal. You know, the one thing though that I want to mention, President Frederick was such a man, wasn't he? I don't know if you've served with him under him.
I did.
You did, yeah, because you finished in 2007. Now, this is something that I keep to this day. Okay, I still have so many study journals, and one of the things, let me just show you, give you an example. Oh, this is from Ashley. If you remember, you can see here, he asked us to kind of divide the page in you know, just like one side for our thoughts and then one side for whatever we were studying. And and it's all a little bit like this, you see. Just I have tons and tons and tons of study journals like this. They kind of, and this is how I learned a lot of the doctrine, to be quite honest. And I did it diligently until my second baby was born. And then everything went down the drain, because all of a sudden you discover you haven't got any time to do anything.
You're busy training you're busy training the little ones, as opposed to training your mind and your spirit, I suppose. It
is so hard. I mean, even now, it was so nice for me, actually, to some extent, to look through my study journals and to think, and whenever I look at them, I remember President Frederick. And one of my journals actually has, I think Sister Chandler wrote this, and you probably remember this one as well. Do you remember the question? How hot is your flame?
I think that happened shortly after I went home, because I've heard it from a number of missionaries that I was around towards that latter part of my mission. But but we've heard it before on the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, do you know what? It's actually quite interesting, because I've spoken to my husband about it, and we sometimes talk about it. And I think that as a parent, your flame kind of oscillates from one time to another. But I think that sometimes my scripture study can be, standing by one of my cubicles where my phone is charging, and I'm opening the gospel app, and I'm managing, if somebody is not interrupting me, like every 2 seconds, I'm managing to read a scripture or two. Do you see what I'm saying? This is my scripture study.
Oh yeah.
Or sometimes when I'm feeding my baby, and I'm like this, with my phone, and he's going away, sleeping, whatever he's doing, and then this is how I'm studying my scriptures. You see. This is how I studied for my driving test, by the way, because otherwise I wouldn't have had a chance in the world to be able to pass. This is how you do it, don't you? I mean, you know better,
true.
Because, so yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, what else?
I appreciate that though, because it's a perfect encapsulation of the fact that the gospel is personal. Yeah. Like there's no set guideline of how much you need to study or how you need to be X, Y, and Z beyond just being a good member of the church and following the commandments and obeying the laws of the gospel. I mean, beyond that, it's up to your own personal capacity. And reflecting a lot recently, I've thought a lot about the seasons of life and how seasons change, things happen, there's events in our life where there's children, there's deaths in the family, there's illnesses, there's things that happen continuously that cause us to adjust in some way or another. And ultimately, we're still learning. I mean, your example of catching a couple of scriptures in that very short moment of peace is what it's all about, because that's where your mind is. And the Spirit is able to speak to you at that moment and beyond, because you asserted yourself into that opportunity. So bravo to you for that. That's big.
Do you know what? It's actually making a huge difference. I'm not saying that we ought to rely on this, but I think my husband and I were both making a priority to make sure that we do our scripture study and that we say our prayers. We never check up on each other, because it's not, it's very personal, isn't it? It's very individual. You have to do it, because nobody's going to take care of your own testimony. But I think it really helps to think, I need to do my scriptures, whatever, because he'll be saying, I need to do my scripture. I need to be better with this. I need to be better with that, So it just kind of helps as a reminder that you ought to do it, and that you don't have to be perfect at it. I think with me becoming a mom, the idea of, having half an hour to feast, you don't have it. You just don't have it. It's a luxury. Yeah. I mean, genuinely, it's a luxury that you just don't have the time. You're going to snack on the word of God. Sorry, but this is what's going to happen. Because sometimes if our eldest is autistic, she doesn't like to sleep. Okay. And so sometimes my husband will be up with her. He usually takes the first shift from like about 1 to about 4 or 5. And then I wake up. If I wake up at that time and she's the only one who's awake, I will have a lot more time to study. But that happens maybe once a week. For the rest of the time, there will be, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, and that's about it. And I think this is one of the greatest things that I've learned as well, is that we don't have to be perfect, but we still have to keep trying, we basically need to keep giving a damn, so, because
well said.
Because the thing is that when you stop trying and you think, I need to be perfect, I think this is when the adversary wins, because, like if you saw the state in which we go to church, you'd think, why do we even show up? Our eldest, again, she's autistic. She's just started to say some things. Okay, she's almost 8, which she's probably not going to get baptized because she doesn't have an understanding of what's happening. But today we had a shorter service because it was Remembrance Sunday. But most of the times she will wail. She doesn't understand. She needs to be reverent, So my husband and I will kind of take turns to take her outside to, she has a tablet where she has like primary songs and she sings, so, and the baby, sometimes he will wail, then we have to go out with him. The only person that gets something out of it is Daisy, who is the only neurotypical child that we have for now, and she manages to get to primary and she manages to make friends, so so out of the 5 of us, you would think, why do we still show up? And I think that I have learned that. I remember in Bathgate, there was it was an autistic boy who was 14 and he was blessing the sacrament. And one of the things that he said when he bore his testimony stood with me. He said, if you push yourself in the right situation, the Lord will give you a push. I think it's the same with us, that if we put ourselves in the right circumstance, the Lord will have somebody to work with. And more often than not, I will not get stuff out of church, but sometimes I will. And I'm glad that I made it. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
Yeah.
We had our primary program today, and
the presentation.
The bishop got up and he said the exact same words. He's like, it's not a matter of how you get here and what shape you're in when you do, but the piece that he said is that your kids will be impacted because at some point they'll get that nibble. I mean, you talked about feasting and snacking. You get a nibble, and that's when the appetite grows, and that's what it's all about. So much I have a great deal of respect for you continuing to push on, because I'm sure your daughter has had some challenges for you and your husband, but you do what you need to do, and I'm sure she will be blessed richly for your efforts.
I think that mostly Daisy, the neurotypical one, because Lizzie, we don't know how much she knows. But the one thing that's really lovely is that because she's autistic, she's repetitive. So that means that the primary songs get played very often in our home. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think this is another way in which the Lord manages to reach our hearts, Or another thing, we, at the beginning, when we started establishing Family Home Evening, it took us a while because, we just new parents,
Sure.
What Yeaden decided was like, okay, let's put a playlist together of some, they had the Mormon messages for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that list has been played and overplayed and overplayed and overplayed and overplayed. And sometimes you still go back to them. And some of the messages from some of those videos, there's the one with Elder Holland with the singing birds, and there's another one with the umbrellas by President Nuchtdorf, So all of those things, sometimes they've been really good for me to hear, So I think that sometimes the Lord has a funny way of reaching to us, even through the weakest of the weak. Do you know what I mean? So
definitely,
it's been very humbling having Lizzie, because I think it's taught me how Heavenly Father loves us. Lizzie gives us very little or nothing in return, because that's how it works with autism. You don't get much in return, or if anything. But I still love her. I still want to protect her. I still want to take care of her, to make sure that, she does the best that she can,
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, wow. Well, Yulia, you brought up a couple of experiences with the Fredericks. Did you have any other memories with them or with the Griffiths in your time that you were with them?
Yes. With President Frederick, I actually read some of the things that he said to me in an interview. I struggled with low self-esteem all throughout my life, and I think he was really trying to bring home the fact that I matter, And to read this, I had forgotten about it. It was really interesting that he had that insight to see that I was struggling, and he I don't know, he really managed to reach my heart in ways that I never expected somebody who barely knew me could do that, you know. And I remember when President Griffiths started his mission, and he asked us to write on a piece of paper like a letter that we could send to the Fredericks, and I just cried. I just cried and cried and cried because I really loved them, and whenever we'd have zone conferences, I remember just feeling the spirit so strongly, and it was just it was really lovely to have the Fredericks. I don't remember much now, but with the Griffiths, I think because I had them for most of my mission, especially with Sister Griffiths. With Sister Griffiths, I learned something that was, I think, quite crucial for me and for my testimony. I learned that she was struggling with what they call, I think it's clinical depression. And for me, during that time on my mission, it was quite important because it helped me to understand a principle that I never could quite understand for myself, which is that the Savior had to go through some things so that he can know how to succor us from our weaknesses, you know, so that he can empathize fully with what we're going through. And I thought, you know what, in a funny sort of way, I needed to learn those things about Sister Griffiths because she was able to then understand me and help me understand what I am going through. So in that sort of way, I was able to, I don't know, that side of the atonement made sense to me. So, and then obviously I spent a lot of time at the mission home before I left home. And Sister Griffiths always had little projects for me to do. They were just little jobs, you know, and they kept me busy. And I loved it. I loved it. It was just so nice. And she was so friendly. She was just really bubbly. She always kept me busy. And I loved that. I then later on went and spent a Christmas with them actually after I finished the mission. But it was just really, really lovely. I loved them. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Great memories, and I love your recollection of some of the things that she did to keep you busy and keep you at work during
Like
your
one
time
of
in the
them
mission.
was to, let me see, to categorize some shirts that the elders had left at the mission home so that she can then redistribute them. It was just like a silly job like that, but it was so fun for me. I was like, I have another job. Or another one was to crochet some bandages for people who suffered from leprosy. I think she was involved in a charitable project like that, you know, because I could crochet, you know, so that was really nice for me to do, you know, because it kept me busy, helped me feel like I was doing something useful. So she was really good like that, you know.
Man, that's wonderful. I love to hear that. Well, really, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on. First and foremost, for reaching out and expressing your interest in joining us on the podcast. It's been really wonderful to speak with you. The last question that I have for you is, I mean, you've got all these wonderful sister missionaries you served with. I don't know how frequently you're still in touch with them, but is there any of them that you'd want to call out as far as inviting them to be on the podcast as future guests?
Oh, you know what? First of all, thank you very much for accepting this. I think I only reached out because I feel very strongly about my mission. Yes, it was a very difficult experience for me, but I feel it was a very formative one. You know, so I'm really grateful that you've given me this opportunity. In terms of the sisters, I think all of them would be great to come on. So if you want, I can email you their names. I think I still have a few on my Facebook, but all of them would be great. Like Sister Cook. She is related to Brigham Young, by the way, you know, so.
Nice.
Everybody in Utah is related to Brigham Young.
Well, I don't know about that, but anyway. Sister
So am
Cook.
I.
Are you too? Oh my goodness gracious me. So Sister Cook, then Sister Sheffield. Sister Sheffield, I don't think she's on Facebook anymore, but I kept in touch with her for a little while over Marco Polo, but then Marco Polo is not big in the UK, so I stopped using it because then you just get busy. Then sister Chandler, I think I still have her on Facebook. She's I think she'd be willing to come on.
Yeah.
Sister Ott, she's got her hands full. I think she's got 3 or 4 boys.
Nice.
Sister, who is that? Sister Spackman. I think I still have her on Facebook. But again, we're not in touch very often because we just have we have busy lives, you know.
Sure.
We're mothers, yeah. It just
Sure, I get it. My invitation to you, Yulia, is to reach out to them and tell them
Okay.
that you were thinking of them today as you spoke about your mission, and when this is published, you can share that with them, and then they will hear from your voice as well as ours that we would love to have them come on the podcast and share their mission experience just as much as you have. So that would be
Brilliant.
awesome.
Okay, I can definitely do that. I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds awesome.
Thank you very much for inviting me, guys. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Our last thing we want to say to you, Yulia, is we want to express to you our love for being one of our amazing sisters that served in the Scotland Edinburgh Mission. We admire you because there were not many of the sisters that got to run around the wild streets of Scotland, like us boys that could fend for ourselves a little bit better. So you're definitely one of the choice ones. I can tell you that. But just know that we love you. We're so grateful that you're one of our sisters, and we're here for you in anything that we can to help buoy you up in those moments that you need it.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Oh, and just one last fun fact.
Sure.
2 of my sisters-in-law served in Scotland,
Oh,
and one of my husband's nephews was in my district. So that tells you a lot about how much older my husband is.
that's okay. That's all right. Who is
But,
that missionary? What's his name?
Elder Loynes, I don't know if he came on, but I can
Loynes.
speak to him personally, Joshua Loynes, and I can tell him, you know, you need to get on.
Yeah, send them
Definitely.
our way.
We would love to have him for sure.
Brilliant. I'll message him tonight.
I love it. Well, Yulia, thank you
you.
again.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. We'll say cheerio to you, and we'll talk more soon. All right.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.